Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he has dropped a central element of a bitterly contested overhaul of the judiciary that has sparked months of mass protests, like this one last weekend. He told the Wall Street Journal in an interview posted on Thursday he'd scrap the so-called override clause, which would grant Parliament the authority to overturn Supreme Court rulings. His nationalist religious government would still pursue changes, though, to how judges are selected.
Well, I already changed a few things right after the original proposal was put forward. I said that the idea of an override clause where the Parliament, the Knesset, can override the decisions of the Supreme Court with a simple majority, I threw that out.
Netanyahu's remarks upset the far-right police minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who accused him of caving to protesters. The news knocked the Israeli shekel. An analyst told Reuters that was because it confirmed Netanyahu was still pressing ahead. The judicial overhaul has raised concern in the United States and other allies about the health of Israel's democracy. Domestic critics see it as an attempt to curb judicial independence by Netanyahu, who is on trial on corruption charges he denies. Netanyahu paused the plan in late March for compromise talks with the opposition. But those talks were suspended this month, and Netanyahu's coalition began work this week on a new bill.
Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony.
And there they go. It looks like
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1. The Kohinoor and the Colonial Loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.